Welcome. You are listening to Haunted Histories on Paranormal UK Radio. Hello everybody and welcome to this episode of Haunted Histories here exclusively on Paranormal UK Radio. Yes, it's your history hostess with the mostess, Penny Griffiths Morgan. I hope you're all doing well. Now, before I introduce my guest, who I will admit, and she'll probably giggle in the background when I say this, we have just been gassing for 2.5 hours because we haven't spoken for quite a long time. And we had a lot to catch up on. But before I introduce her, who's got hold of a copy of my new book then? Paranormal Playtime, The School That Never Sleeps. If you have, let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any questions. If you haven't, go and get a copy. It's on Kindle and in hard copy format over on Amazon. And if you want a signed copy and you're in the UK, drop me a message on the Haunted Histories page or my email, hauntedhistories@virginmedia.com, and we can get that organised for you. What else has been going on? Well, who's seen? There's a new series of Unexplained caught on camera coming up soon with good friend to us, well, good friends really, Jane Harris and Barry Guy. Barry actually who wrote the foreword for my new book. See how I segued that in there? You impressed? I say, been doing this a while, so that's coming up. What else? Well, that's pretty much it really that's been going on. Just doing the same old like so many of us are doing in this sort of groundhog lockdown whatever. But I do hope you've been enjoying the material that Haunted Histories has been putting out. Obviously, loads of different podcasts, blogs. I even did a Facebook Live the other day, which is one of my pet hates. But I thought I'd do one. And, there seemed to be a lot of you watched it. So thank you for that. I do appreciate that. But my guest tonight, well, I have known this lady for, crumbs. It's got to be about 3 years now we've known each other. And, I do remember me accidentally putting her jeans on when we were at the Mail, Daily Mail photo shoot. I don't know if she remembers this. But, we all had black jeans and I grabbed a pair and put them on and thought, hell, I've put on weight in the last 2 hours because they were a bit tight. And then I suddenly hear this voice go, has anyone got my jeans? And I was wearing them. But I refuse to do Facebook Lives with her, because she is so darned gorgeous. It makes me feel like I need to put a paper bag over my head. But she's gorgeous, but she's lovely with it, which is obviously a rare combination. She's an investigator. She's a clairvoyant medium, and I'm sure she'll correct me on this if I've got it wrong. She's a TV presenter. And she's actually one of the organisers for September's Festival of the Unexplained. It is the gorgeous and beautiful and lovely and good friend of mine, Jolene Jackson Lockwood.
How much have I got to pay you? Bless you. Oh, do you know what, Pen? I absolutely love you.
Thank you, darling.
It's like you've just given me like the biggest, warmest like intro ever, and I'm thinking, it's like you're blushing.
Do you know, it is one of my things. It is one of my things to give people nice intros, and if every time I've done one, someone's gone, "Thank you so much," and I mean it. It comes from the heart. I wouldn't say it if it didn't. But do you
know? And that's John? Like we have caught up tonight, 2.5 hours. It's. Do you know what? I always think to myself, we've not spoken for so long because with COVID, work, life gets in the way, doesn't it, of everything. And it's so lovely just to be able to chat to a good friend and just put the world to rights.
Exactly. It does make me laugh that your other half has messaged sort of 2 hours ago. You still talking? Yep. You're still talking? Yep. Even your kids are going, are you still talking? Yep.
Yeah, well, bless him. He's been working on his house anyway, hasn't he? So he's made the lasagna that I cooked him earlier on in the week, and he's eaten that. So at least I know he's eaten, and he's taken himself off to bed. Bless him. So,
well, my other half said, "How long are you going to be on for?" I said, "Oh, I'll probably catch up for half an hour, and then an hour recording." And he went, "Yeah, and the rest." And yeah, he was right.
Bless Wayne. How is he? I hope he's doing all right.
He's good. He's really busy with work at the moment, which is always a reassuring thing. But yeah, with the snow last week, he couldn't. It's a bit dangerous going up on a roof when it's covered in snow. So he was twiddling his thumbs a bit last week, and he's like a caged animal when he can't work. He's one of those. He needs it to well, he needs to lose the energy. He's got way too much of it, even at his age. I say, no, he's 7 years younger than me. He was his birthday last week, and I do tease him that he's well into his 40s now. So, got to keep him on his toes.
Oh, that's not good, Penny. Gotta be nice to them.
No, because he do you know what he turned around the other day? I think the eldest son was asking about decimalisation, and he turned around and said, "Ask your mother, she'd remember it." Oh, shh. Or the best one when one of them was asking about the Black Death in 1665 or whenever it was, and he turned around and said, "Ask your mother, she'll know all about that." And he didn't mean, because I'm a historian. So it's just one of those things when you're with someone for a long time, you've got to take the mickey out of each other. Keep it.
At least you're not called a witch. I'm a witch all the time.
Oh no, I get that. He reckons I put a spell on him. That's how I managed to snag a guy 7 years younger than me, that I put a spell on him.
Yeah, Mark says that to me, but he's not 7 years younger than me just yet. So
I said, well, I'm pretty sure the statute on spells would have run out after 17 years, so you're free to go if you want to. Bye-bye. And he doesn't want to go, so, the spell must have worked. But yes, I do get called. I get called a lot of things. Yes, witch is one of them. He did tell our eldest once, Mummy's a witch. And my poor son was only about 6 years old when he told him that. And I think he gave him nightmares. But anyway, being serious, what are you up to these days, girlie?
Oh, what am I up to?
Keep it clean.
Well, we've just finished doing the Winter Festival of the Unexplained, which was fantastic. We raised £1,600 there or thereabouts for male suicide charity Calm, which to me is, we never anticipated to earn that sort of money for that charity, and it was just brilliant. So
I know one of your speakers, she was very good. She was very, very good.
Was it yourself by any chance?
I couldn't possibly say.
I love it how you always kick off our events as well.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's brilliant, because I always think to myself, who can we get to kick off our events? The blonde bombshell herself. So it's always great, and I always love it, because you are kicking off our September event, which is really good. And COVID has put paid to quite a lot of events this year, and I'm so proud to say that the Festival of the Unexplained is going ahead in September of this year. And there are tickets available, and we have a massive, huge lineup of guests, and I'm really excited for it.
Where do people get tickets for it if they're interested, Jo?
They can have a look on our Facebook page. They can message myself and Karen directly. They can go on our website, which is festivaloftheunexplained.com. And yeah, it's madness, to be honest with you. There's so much work that goes into this, and I can't begin to imagine to tell you how much work is going into it.
So is this festival just going to be a bog standard Paracon where people turn up, people are sitting at tables, they get to have a photo with them and an autograph and go home, or is there going to be something a bit different?
No. We took the stance of Paracons over the pond in America, and we love the concept of those Paracons, but we wanted it to be a little bit different. We said we needed to have interaction from our guests, and we want our guests to feel like this is their event, not an event that's been staged for them. So this Friday we have historical tour, which yours truly is going to be hosting.
Mm-hmm.
And you are, it's just the two historic venues that we will be visiting are beautiful, but they are steeped in so much history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really proud of the fact that we are incorporating the English history for our USA guests.
Yes.
But we're also having a very interactive Friday night dinner with all of our guests, but also our USA guests as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this I wouldn't call it a paracon more than anything. I'd call it a shindig of like-minded people, because we've got people from all genres, so UFOs, cryptids, we've got the paranormal, we've got mediums, we've got probably everything that you could ever wish for at a convention, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is that everybody is of the same umbrella, and we just wanted everybody to come together, especially with COVID over the past year. Nobody's been anywhere. We just wanted to kind of bring together all the paranormal community and say, look, this is what we can do, and we can all have a great night. We can have a great party weekend, and you get to experience what you want to experience. If you don't want to join in the speakers, you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. We're hosting this at a spa hotel for the weekend, so people are going to enjoy themselves.
Yeah, it's Bosworth Hotel you're hosting it, isn't it? And
it is, it's renowned to be haunted as well.
It is. I've been doing research into that. Yes, it's got a very, very diverse backstory to it.
Well, I've not done any research on it, and I've picked up some quite dark things about the place. And
you'll have to tell me what those are, mate. Not necessarily now, but at another time.
Yeah, I've kind of, I don't do research, as you know, on places, because it kind of gives you the power of suggestion, doesn't it? And especially when you work as a medium, you can't be seen to have these powers of suggestion. I can't speak tonight.
It's because we've already been talking for nearly 3 hours.
I know. But yeah, the power of suggestion just kind of says to me, don't research somewhere until you've actually been in and investigated somewhere.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think most mediums want to work that way. I know that when I did the British School in Hitchin, when the manager was giving us history stuff, Sam Bennett's almost ran out of the room covering her ears and said, don't tell me. And I can say categorically, he didn't. He told me, so I knew some of the stuff, so that when she was coming up with stuff, I was actually able to afterwards go, you're spot on. You're spot on. That's exactly what he told me, and she didn't know. So it's very, I understand that, but I'd be interested to hear some point off record what your experiences, thoughts are, because like I say, I've been immersing myself in the history of that place and the people who've lived there and everything else. And there's
well, I don't mind telling you, but there is some robbery that's happened on that land, and somebody was murdered as part of that robbery. That's the only thing that I can see. And this person who was murdered was shot, and that's what I've seen quite clearly. So that's basically, I don't know whether you found that, but I don't know.
Okay, no, I haven't, but it's plausible. It's plausible from some of the other stuff I found. But one of the things you find, I mean, you and I, the place we're going to be talking about tonight is somewhere known as the Tivoli in Buckley in North Wales. And one of the things you and I were discussing was how hard it is to research a place before about the 1800s. Do you remember we were chatting about it in messages? And it is. And I mean, one of the things I've found when I've researched things like the Wars of the Roses that happened in the 1400s, a lot of the research you're looking at isn't primary research, as we would call it. It's secondary stuff, but it has to be taken as primary because nobody else has documented anything. And this is like historians from 50 years onwards. And when you're looking at 12th century, 13th century, even 14th century, a lot of the research you're then looking at is what the monks wrote down, or people wrote down that they've been told 100 years, it's gone through the generations, if you like. So it's been, shall we say, Chinese whispered.
Yeah,
I call it. And also when you look at things like the Wars of the Roses, and people paint Richard III as, for example, as being this child murdering, hunchback, bigot, nasty person, and weak, didn't. And you think, well, actually, that's been written by the Tudors, who hated him. Yet he wasn't a hunchback. He had scoliosis, but he still wore armor. He was still a knight. He still went hunting. He still was able to fight with a sword. He was, so it's the history side is quite interesting. And so, yes, there is feasible, the robbery thing. And I think I know possibly which one of the baronets that would have applied to. I
don't get as detailed information as that. I can describe the people involved, but obviously when you it was a dream, actually. It was really strange because when we decided that we were going to host the festival in the Midlands and at that venue, it was then that I started to have these strange dreams. But it's like anything, isn't it? You kind of think about them and you think, oh, could that have been real? Could that not?
Yeah. No, there definitely have been deaths on the land. I can tell you that categorically. But yes, it's interesting. It's interesting. So you also got your, we're going to talk about the Tivoli in a minute, but you've also got your show on Keep On Chatting that you do a lot.
Yeah, I don't have my own show on Keep On Chatting, but the network itself has loads and loads of shows from all around the world. So we have the USA on a Sunday evening. I sometimes come on and do some readings. I speak to an awful lot of people about what they do, how they got into the paranormal. But I dip in and dip out more than anything. As you know, I work full time, so I'm awfully busy during the day. So sometimes I don't have enough time to kind of commit to a weekly show. But I like to be able to say, I'm going to do an off the cuff show tonight. Yeah. And it's great because, Karen and Ed, they let me do that, which is good. But also, I'm no stranger to kind of the podcasts, and I get asked to do an awful lot of podcasts, and hence why we're talking.
Yeah, but I do take priority of a lot of people, don't I, if I ask for you?
Of course you do, because like we say, we are good friends, and COVID's kind of put paid to us meeting up in person, having dinner as couples, and kind of the double dates as you do.
Yeah,
but it's nice to be able to catch up with you and to put the world to rights, so to speak.
Exactly. Well, the place we're talking about, when if anyone's wondering, when I'm looking for a guest for one of my shows, I have two types that I either approach someone because I know they know a venue I'm interested in talking about, or I know that they're a good friend, they'll do a good show, and I say to them, where would you like to talk about? And I normally say, give me 2 or 3 places and we'll find one that fits in with, that's not going to be too samey to other things I've done very recently, but also one that makes me go, oh, I can delve into the rabbit hole for that one. Interesting. And the one you came back to me with was the Tivoli in Buckley. Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned it, I was thinking, that rings a bell. Why does that place ring a bell? And I couldn't think why. And then I realised it's a gig venue, and I'm a rocker, and loads of rock bands have played there and still continue to play there. And so when I sort of realised it was that, I thought that's going to be so much fun, because if I can find out some really freaky ghost stories about it, some of the rock bands I know, I can scare the bejesus out of them. So what first attracted you to the Tivoli and Buckley, Miss Jo?
Do you know what? It was part of a weekender that we did with Phantasmic Paranormal, and we investigated the Tivoli during a Saturday daytime. Now, and Kelly won't mind me saying at all, but when I approached them and said, please, can we do a Saturday daytime investigation? He was like, are you mad? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
But we all know spiritual activity doesn't just happen at nighttime, it happens during the day. But because this is a music venue, it's pitch black inside. It is it's cold in there as well, and it's just a beautiful building. But in order for us to do the event meant that we had to go between 12 and I think it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when I first went there. And I was mesmerized. As soon as I walked in, it was like I was transported back to the 1920s. It was just such a beautiful historic building. But it had this hidden underbelly of something not quite right. Mm-hmm. And I always thought to myself, I really need to investigate this. And obviously being in North Wales, you know, it's just literally a stone's throw from my partner's house.
Right.
So that's the reason why I love that venue. It's steeped in history. It's got so much in there, and the amount of activity that I captured in such a short space of time was just unbelievable. And it's just one of my favorite places to go.
Cool. Well, the place itself, the Tivoli, as you see it now, if you drive down Brunswick Road and you're looking for it, you will see a cinema theatre that was built in the 1920s. I think it was opened in May 1925, designed to have, I think, about 960 seats.
Yeah.
It's quite big. There was another property on there that they knocked down. I believe it was the hall, wasn't it? The sort of central hall that they knocked down to build this. And the central hall itself had shown films as well. So it's got a sort of a film, I suppose you could say, vibe running through it. Mm-hmm. It's a relatively modern building. But one of the stories that first jumped up at me when I started looking it up, and I was looking up on various websites, and they went, oh, Tivoli, haunted by a guy who was murdered there. And you know me, Jo, when I see things like that, the antennae go, and I'm like, let's see if this is true. And I started researching. Over.
I bet you couldn't find anything though, could you?
Over. Because all the websites say he was murdered there in 1946. He was a projectionist who was murdered there. He was trapped in the room and he burnt to death. And I'm thinking, well, if that was murder, there'd be police records. There'd be something. And there's nothing. So then I thought, and I think I messaged you and I said, did this really happen? And while I was waiting for you to come back to me, I thought, let's just look 1945 instead. And I also reached out to the Buckley Historical Society, who I have to say are amazing. Their knowledge about their town is amazing. So if anyone wants to check out Buckley, contact the Historical Society. I can't stress how helpful they were.
They are fantastic, though.
They're amazing, aren't they? They sent me through this great big long article, and she said, all I ask is if you're going to mention it, anything that's in there, can you mention us as well? Well, what she'd sent me in the article I had then found beforehand, because I started looking at 1945. So now, in 1945, and stop me if I'm wrong on any of this, a 39-year-old chap called Harry, well, it's Goldrich, and some it says Goodrich, but I found him under Goldrich, under his birth records, died whilst at the Tivoli.
Yeah.
And he was an assistant projectionist, and he'd gone in on a Sunday to go into the actual winding room, so not the projection room, the winding room, to get some of the films ready for the next day, which was a bank holiday Monday, and had loads of films planned for the kids, I believe. There was a fire. He was dragged out by a guy by the name of Sergeant Williams, who actually pulled him out because he was unconscious. There is discrepancy as to whether he was actually passed away at that point or if he passed away once he'd been taken. I think he was taken to a doctor's next door or something like that to see if they could do anything for him. But the story goes, and this is why I do Haunted Histories, the story goes that he was locked in there, the fire was set, he couldn't get out, and that's why he died, which doesn't go by what I found when I finally found him. Have you met Harry?
Have I met Harry?
Yeah.
I spoke on the festival of the Unexplained, the Winter Festival. I actually dropped a pilot episode of, it's called A Psychic Investigates. And this was a very, very rough edit of a TV show that I've written. Now, Harry was a name that I actually came up with whilst I was inside the projection room and I was discussing things. And if you watch the footage back, you can quite clearly see me say, I've got the name of Harry and I've got also the name of Rachel. And
you're joking. You got Rachel as well?
Yeah, honestly, it was so strange. And the reason why I thought about Rachel was because Phantasmic Paranormal, we have a girl called Rachel who worked on our team, who happens to be one of my lifelong school friends who I went to high school with. And Rachel won't mind me saying this, but, she didn't join our team until later. Mm-hmm. But we booked the Tivoli as one of the venues we wanted to investigate, just as a 3-girl team. Mm-hmm. And he kept mentioning Rachel, and I was like, I don't understand why you're mentioning Rachel to me. Mm-hmm. But he also mentioned William, and you can see me say that as well in the film. I said, he's also mentioning William to me. I said, but I can't seem to find a William, and I don't see where William actually comes into it. And it was strange because the feelings and the thoughts that I was picking up, he was moving heavy boxes on a dockyard, which isn't synonymous with the Tivoli and lugging of, the reels and things like that. And I found myself questioning, why am I being shown steamboats? Why am I being shown?
Oh my gosh, you are good. You are good.
Well, this is the thing, because obviously, I don't do any research. So when I'm sat in the projection room, the worst thing is my partner was outside the projection room because he filmed part of the footage for me. He was outside. The door was shut. There was no other person in that room with me. And you can hear quite clearly disembodied voices, but you can also hear children in there. There were no children in that building. There was me, my partner, and the owner. And that was it.
The reason I'm saying you're good, and I'm going to do the spoiler here. Okay. Harry was married to someone called Rachel. They'd got married in 1936. However, I don't think it lasted very long, because I think she was actually pregnant when they got married, because they had a daughter called Maureen who was born in 1936. He was Merchant Navy. Hence the boxes you're seeing on a dockyard.
And it's funny you say that, because when I did the medium kind of walk around and did the investigation, the show itself is always done upside down for me. So I have to go in, do my investigation first, then I have to link, obviously, the intro, but then I have to do the research last, because if I do it the wrong way round, it's not credible. And this is the reason why I did it the way I did it. And I actually found that he was a merchant seaman, because I actually put the actual record. But you hear me say in the film, he's around about 5'10". Mm-hmm. Now, when I said that, I was actually sat on a seat. So when I looked up at him, he had dark hair, and I said, he's got dark hair because he keeps referencing my hair, and I've got jet black hair anyway.
Yeah.
But he kept saying to me, you look like me. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, your hair, your skin. And I was like, this is a bit strange, this is. And when I looked at his record, it said he was 5'7". So he was the same height as me. Mm-hmm. He had dark hair, dark skin, and brown eyes. Well, I've got green eyes. So
his parents were Turkish and Russian Polish immigrants. So that in the Mediterranean kind of appearance.
That's madness, though, isn't it? That.
Did you know that bit? Had you found?
I didn't know that bit. No, because
yes, I told her something she hadn't said. Yes,
I didn't know that bit. But it's to me, any sort of information like that people can validate to me. I love it. I absolutely love it.
But that's why I do Haunted Histories, because the story on all the paranormal sciences say that he was murdered. Nobody says his name, and he wasn't murdered.
No.
The film he was working with is called Cellulose Nitrate, and this type of film was used, I think they said they used it in Welsh cinemas until about 1948, from what the Historical Society told me, but this stuff was used in films until the early 1950s. It is so dangerous. In archivists, there's only a certain number of archivists who will handle it, because this stuff can burst into flames on its own. It has got such a low flash point, and I wrote it down. It can ignite at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So
Wow.
if you left a box of cellulose nitrate film in a car on a warm day, you would come back to a blazing car. That's how easily it ignites. And also, if he was using the winding spools, well, they do get quite warm. And say if that film slightly starts to jam or whatever, it could burst into flames. And the thing was, it releases so much carbon monoxide, you've got literally minutes to get out before you're overcome. It
was strange. Yeah, it's strange that you say that, but I saw him smoking a pipe when I saw him smoke. When I saw him in the room, he was smoking a pipe, and you know, he sat there and he was quite matter of fact, and it was kind of like, you know, he basically said to me, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "To see you." Why have you come to see me? And it's like, well, I need to understand your story, and I'm here to understand that story. And then he showed me him smoking a pipe, and it was very, very seaside. Do you remember when the gentlemen used to put their hand on their hip and smoke the pipe? And it was like, oh, tally-ho sort of thing, you know, very 1940s kind of. It was like that. And I do believe that something happened to do with the ignition of something due to a cigarette or smoking of some sort. Possibly.
But like I say, this film, just if it gets warm, it can just ignite. I mean, there's an old cinema in Chelmsford that everyone says, oh, somebody was trapped up there and it burnt down and stuff. And I've never been able to find details of it, but just looking for cinema fires between the 1920s and the 1940s, there are so many, because being a projectionist was such a dangerous job because of how flammable this film was. I mean, I found a tragic case when I was researching for this. It was in 1929 at the Glen Cinema in Scotland. It was actually on New Year's Eve in 1929, and it was a film fire, and it killed 69 children.
It's so sad, though, isn't it?
It's so, yeah, it shouldn't have. But I mean, they didn't switch to the next type of film until, like I said, I think it was something called acetate, until, say, the very late 1940s, early 1950s. But it was one of those things. It was one of those accidents that could happen so easily. In fact, we use something that can ignite by itself. You know, it doesn't even need, and you can't actually just put it out with water.
No.
I was reading another case about the archives, the American archives in 1978. They had they were moving some nitrate film around, and they knocked the box, and the knock was enough to trigger a reaction. The film burst into flames. Nobody died. I think there was 18 injuries, but they had to use a special type of foam to put it out, which wouldn't have existed in the 1940s. So, you know, it's an absolutely tragic. But say he had a daughter, and she was only 9 when he died, and I did read her mum died a couple of years later, which is absolutely tragic. But yeah, so the Rachel, I reckon, would have been his wife, Rachel, or his separated wife. The boxes, the Merchant Navy, the William reference, that was Sergeant Williams who pulled him out.
Yeah, and that was unbelievable, because I didn't actually twig that in the actual film itself. You know, I said, oh, he's mentioning the name William, and obviously when I looked back at the newspaper clippings that I found, because, you know, Mark, bless him, hasn't got any interest in the paranormal, but he helps me research. Yeah. And he found those, and he said, oh, the William is Sergeant Williams, who dragged him out of the building. And that to me was just like an epiphany moment. And it's kind of like, you know, I'm so glad that Mark was helping me, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. It's always useful, actually, having someone who's not involved in what you do. I know when my husband comes out, and he comes up with things that I'd never have thought of to question. And it's actually really useful having them there. Now, if anyone's wondering what you're listening to Haunted Histories on Paranormal UK Radio. I'm Penny Griffiths-Morgan, if you didn't know, and I am chatting with my lovely friend Jolene Jackson Lockwood. Now, The area of Buckley. So this is one of the famous hauntings, isn't it? Harry is one of the most, and let's give him a name because nobody puts his name.
Yeah.
His name's Harry. If anyone goes there, say hello to Harry. It's his name.
You'll find as well, if you use his name or you understand his name and you understand how he passed away, he will communicate. He is intelligent.
Yeah.
He will be there. And, the amount of EVPs that I caught was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So they just need to give him that name. Yeah. But there are a couple of dark energies there as well that don't, they don't resonate very well with me.
What sort of happened there? Because he was the only one that I was really able to dig and find anything interesting and historical about.
Yeah.
One of the other ones that people say they see there is like an executioner or a Victorian.
Yeah, the executioner basically was, he was, I don't understand the story of it, to be perfectly honest, but somebody photographed on the main dance floor. The dance floor was absolutely packed with people, dancing away, because it is a nightclub and it is a music venue.
Yeah.
And this one person took a picture and you can see one person looking up to the ceiling and they actually see what looks like a hangman's noose there. Now, the story that is there is that the hanged man was being mocked, that he couldn't hang people properly, apparently. I don't understand the notion of it, but he's quite an angry person. I picked up on his energy, but he was very skittish. He was very confused as well. He was like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why have you called me? I should be somewhere else. And that's the vibe that I got from him. And when I said to him, what have you done? And it was more like he didn't want to do it, but it was just a job.
Yeah.
If you understand.
Definitely,
And basically what had happened was there was a crowd that had gathered around him and he was telling people how he hung people. And they asked him to show them how he hung people, and he accidentally hung himself. And he passed away from that. But there are no records. There are no records of him doing that. No. So that's only hearsay. And we don't work on hearsay in the paranormal, do we?
I don't know. Yeah. I did try looking into if there'd been any hangings in Buckley and I couldn't find any. So I'm presuming it wasn't quite big enough. They would have gone to, is it Mould? That's the next.
Yeah, Mould is probably one of the biggest towns there.
Or even Buckley, across the water into Chester or something like that. And I mean, we've discussed, I know you and I have discussed this, and I've discussed this with quite a lot of guests. It's very possible. So he could have been brought in with someone who's gone there to go out for the night or whatever. He could have some reason latched onto them and decided he liked the energy there and stayed. Because I couldn't find anything about executions ever taking place. Legal execute, but I mean, I guess you have got. Is it pronounced Yulo? Yuli?
Yeah, Yulo.
There would have been executions there in the medieval times as a castle. So could it have been something to do with that? But I couldn't find anything to say, like I did with Harry. I couldn't find anything to confirm that fact. But it's you say, because people have been being hanged, well, since the year dot, since they invented rope, really.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, is, Yulo actually dates back to the Norman times. So we're talking 11th century when we talk about Yulo. So they must have been hangings that have happened in Yulo or the surrounding areas, because it was, Henry V gifted that to his wife, Catherine.
Yeah, jumping all over the years now, love.
You see, I love this because, I don't do my research before I go somewhere, but I like to do it afterwards.
Yeah, so Henry V, you're the psychic girl. Let me do the history bit. Right, yeah, so Henry V gifted Yulo and, if you like, Buckley, although it was known as Buckley
Yeah.
And it didn't change to Buckley until the late 1700s. But it was a derivation of Buckley or something. He actually gifted that to his wife, Catherine of Valois, on their wedding in 1422, although he did only die 2 years later. Anyone who's wondering what Catherine of Valois, what her sort of relevance was she actually married a Welshman by the name of Owen Tudor. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. He had a son called Edmund, who married Margaret Beaufort, who was the mother of Henry VII, who was the first Tudor king following the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. Can you tell what I've been researching recently?
Yes, I can. Yeah. And Bosworth is where we're going in September.
Isn't it a link? Oh, I'm impressed with
it's madness, isn't it? How everything like kind of interlocks with everything.
Tell me about it. So, having done this show now for coming up 4 years, the amount of crossover I get is mind blowing. It blows my mind. But yes, so Catherine married after Henry died. They'd only, in 1422. She was still very young. She married a chap by the name of Owen Tudor. They had, I think it was 5 or 6 children, but one of them was a son called Edmund, who ended up marrying Margaret Beaufort, who was still very, very young. She had Henry VII, and obviously Henry VII had Henry VIII, and everyone knows what happened after that. But yes, he was the one who is said to have beaten Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, which was the penultimate war of the Wars of the Roses.
Wow.
I'm actually saying that from memory. I haven't written that bit down.
Amazing. But do you know what? Eulo Castle, which was the castle of Eulo,
yes,
is located in Harden, which is, it's a mile northwest of Harden, which is in a CH postcode.
Yeah.
But it dates back to
1257, the castle. The area dates back to the Domesday Book, but the castle was built in 1257 by Llewellyn the Last.
Yeah.
There you go.
Did he not build the new castle there, though?
I don't know. I'll admit. I looked up I was so engrossed looking up information on Harry that I suddenly thought, oh, blimey, I better look up. And so I looked up when he was built. But the point is, there's been people around there for years and years and years. And they do say that the Buckley does actually was mentioned in the Domesday Book, which, as you say, the Norman.
It's madness, though, because that's where the Prince of Wales title comes from, is from from Llewellyn.
Mm.
So
isn't it?
It's I love it. I absolutely love it.
You can tell why I go down these holes so often when I start discovering stuff. As a place, though, Buckley, it's actually very famous for pottery and brick making, isn't it?
Yeah, it was predominantly a mining town. It was, brick, clay, pottery, all those, and it was renowned for all of their, it had 14 potteries at one point, and some of their stuff is still made to this day, and people are still buying the Buckley jugs and things. It's beautiful things, We don't have that anymore.
No, I know that the Buckley Historical Society, along with I don't know if it was English Heritage or Heritage something or other, they put a sort of a video together showing what it would have looked like. It's about 5 minutes long, and it takes you on a tour and shows you some of the small potteries, then shows you the brick making. If I can find the link, I'll put it on the Haunted Histories page. But I found it when I was doing my research, and it's all sort of animation and CGI and everything, obviously, but it shows like some of the odd railway tracks from the mines, and I mean that's another thing that gives energy to a place. When you've got coal mines, so many men died in mines. I mean, I did find I just a quick I found at least one colliery in accident at Elm Colliery where one of the chains broke. There was 2 of them in the the cage that got lowered, and the chain broke, and one of them died. But that's not uncommon, was it? Those men going down the mines knew it was dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. And even in the Yorkshire towns, we talk about North Wales being a mining community. The Yorkshire towns are also mining communities,
Definitely.
but accidents happen on a daily basis that weren't recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely did. What I did find, though, that was interesting about Buckley is that because so many places didn't have running water, so many of the cottages, they actually built a swimming pool for the miners to clean themselves in. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I was kind of like, wow. Yeah, they were so worried about miners using because of where they dug out clay and stuff for the bricks, little pools were formed. So almost like the old quarry type thing you see now. And they were so worried about the miners drowning in them because they would go in there to wash off after a day in the pits, that they actually put together these funds to build like a swimming baths. The mining, I can't think what it was called. It's like, the people who run all the mines put all this money in to build these baths so that they could get clean rather than using these makeshift ponds that the clay had created. And you think about things like you don't think about, well, how would they get clean? Well, they would have to, and they would have. You see pictures of like olden style miners coming out of the mines. They are covered. They're black, aren't they? They're pitch black. But then I start thinking, well, it's all very well the men get clean. It's their poor blooming wives who've got to try and clean their clothes. Don't think I'd have wanted that job.
But yeah, that's the thing though, isn't it? We've got so many mines in Yorkshire and in Wales, the slate mines, everything. Yeah. But I didn't know they did the swimming bath though.
I found that out today. I thought that was quite an interesting one. Quite an interesting one. So did you experience anything else at the Tivoli that sort of really, obviously talking to Harry, and again, you have to give him a name. It wasn't 1946 he died, it was 1945. And I am going to put myself on the line here and say he was not murdered. It was a tragic accident. Anything else?
Yeah, I came across quite a lot of females there. Right. There was an awful lot of children though as well. It was really strange because it was like people singing Ring of Roses.
Right.
But I later found out that down below from Central Hall was a market hall.
Yeah.
And there was a lady who was coming in and she was making herself known, but she was part of the houses that were situated just along the road. Mm-hmm. And she used to come and do her daily shopping, and she used to do quite a lot of gardening. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember whether I gave her a name or not, but I just said she just wants to be remembered because this place was her sanctuary, basically. Yeah. She'd go and do her shopping, she'd speak to her friends, and then she'd just go on her way. Mm. And to be honest, being a medium, you know that once you've given what you've got, it kind of just disappears. You can't really remember what you've given, and that's strange, isn't it? Mm. But a lot of mediums do say that once they've given what they've got, they can't remember it. So I'd probably have to have a look back. But there was a woman, and she was quite a homely woman, and she would bake. She would be the stalwart of the community, so to speak. Mm. Mm. But around Buckley, where the Tivoli is situated, there are houses either side now with a couple of retail outlets. But back in the day, I saw that there weren't those retail outlets. There was just this one big place where people would commune, like a communal place to congregate. Mm. And that would be their meeting point. And then they would go off back to their own houses.
Yeah. Yeah. But that makes sense. I mean, you see a lot of the older sort of, like 1940s, 1950s of the women going to the market to get all their stuff, and they're all chatting and meeting up with their friends because they're all going at the same time, because it's not like 24/7, 7 days a week shopping we have now. And people didn't have fridges and freezers, so it was a daily thing. You went out and got the food for that night. You bought fresh every day, so it probably was a social occasion.
Well, yeah, because back in the day, they had little larders, didn't they, which used to have slate on the bottom of them, which would keep everything warm. but they would have to go out and speak to people, because they wouldn't just get everything all under one roof. They would ask other people, and they'd trade things as well. And that's what I found.
Yeah. There was an awful lot of sense of society as well, like camaraderie. And, you know, if your friend had some eggs and you had some spare, I'm trying to think of some bacon, for example, you'd trade. You know, there was very much, you knew your neighbours. So that doesn't, yeah, that's quite an interesting one. So the place itself, you said you felt a few sort of dark energies there, but in general, is it I mean, it's painted dark, it looks dark from the outside because of how it's been decorated as a gig venue. Is it dark inside, as it, like, spiritually speaking?
No, it's not. It's a very welcoming environment. It's like, you know, you walk into some places and you think automatically, you're like, oh my God, I don't like it in here. And it makes you feel sick to your stomach. But that place is just, it's really inviting. It's only when you take a step behind the bar and you stand on the dance floor that you actually feel that something isn't 100% right.
Do you think there's any chance that could be the former, say, manager of the cinema who doesn't like the fact rock bands are now playing in there?
Quite possibly. However, the rock bands have been there since the 1970s, and you know, we're talking, you know, Black Sabbath have played there, and Led Zeppelin have played there, and you know, all of the main huge bands, the Britpop bands, you know, like Oasis and places and people like that have played there. And it's like, is somebody not happy that they're playing there, or do they just want it to be back in the family environment? Because we all know that live music brings rowdiness. You know, people are drinking, people are losing their inhibitions, you know, people potentially doing drugs. And
I think there's more likelihood than just potentially at some of those gigs, yes.
Yeah. But, you know,
I hasten to add, but yeah, I've smelled it before.
Yeah, we sit back though, and we, you know, spirits are aware of what is going on around them. And, you know, especially if they're intelligent, and, you know, they potentially wouldn't like that. You know, they'd be asking questions, what the hell's going on? Because I know I would, you know, why are you doing this here? And this is our place. You know, we're not moving. And, but the fact is that the fire and the remnants of the fire are still visible to this day. That's what's unnerving about the place.
See, that to me, I just wonder why that is. And I know, talking to the contact at the Historical Society, she said there's an awful lot of people really unhappy that the Art Deco ceiling is covered up by there's a drop ceiling or something, and covers up means you can't see the Art Deco ceiling above it. And what you were just saying about them not being happy, I wonder if they're not happy that people can't see their beautiful building properly.
That's why they built them, isn't it? Back in the day, they built the cinemas as a communal part of the community, and they, you know, they made them so they were opulent, so the Art Deco features stood out. And I'm, you know, I never used to like history in school, but looking at these buildings now and researching places, I think, oh my goodness, why would you cover that up?
Yeah. I mean, I understand why they do it in a place. It's for acoustics, and probably fire hazard, that, you know, something to do with fire, and ironically, and everything else. But I'm wondering if there's a jarred off spirit in there. It could be because they don't like how their building's been covered up.
Quite possibly. Might be something to experience. I might have to message the owner and say, I need to come back.
Yeah, possibly with a historian.
Definitely.
A historian who can sing rock music. I think I've told you about my experiences at the Kurzel in Southend when I started singing rock music. That sent the place nuts. So we'll get some AC/DC pumping out, and I'll warm up the vocal cords. And
I'll bang out a little bit of Alanis Morissette, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll go for it. Actually, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, I did an investigation at a place called the Kurzel in Southend, and this was mentioned in my first book, My Haunted History. And Yeah, was it the castle or was it no, it was my second book, Haunted Experiment, I did this in. And I knew that it's similar to the Tivoli. It was a very popular 60s, 70s gig venue, AC/DC, Thin Lizzy, Judas Priest, all the sort of bands I absolutely adore. And we decided to use some rock music as a trigger. And I think I had 8 K2s lined up along the side. And I started singing along to Whole Lot of Rosie by AC/DC. And as I hit the high note at the end of the intro, every single one of the K2s just lit up the red. And honestly, it went bonkers. After that, we saw people walk, because it's a bowling alley. We saw a shadow walking across the bowling alley. 4 of us who were on the table actually smelt someone. So we smelt hash. And I didn't say what I was smelling, but I could smell it. And then somebody else said, I can smell hash. And the minute you stepped away from the table, you couldn't smell it, but none of us smelled of it, if that makes sense. Oh, yeah. But yes, seeing all the K2s light up to red as I was singing the high note in Whole Lot Rosie, obviously that either they hated what I was doing or they liked it. I'm not really sure. But it definitely got the activity pumping that night. So, yeah. It's an interesting one. So have you got any, I mean, obviously at the moment we can't do anything because we're in lockdown, but have you got any more episodes planned?
I have. I've written probably 6 seasons.
Oh my God, Jo.
Yeah, I've been busy in lockdown actually. I've written 6 seasons of A Psychic Investigates. So I'm just waiting for lockdown to ease so that I can start going out. But The Psychic Investigates isn't just paranormal. It isn't just spirit activity. We're talking about every single genre. So there's going to be UFOs in there. There's going to be exorcisms. There's going to be, hauntings. There's going to be a bit of everything for everyone.
Cool. Brilliant.
I'm excited about because yeah, it's daunting.
Yeah.
But I just think, I need to I've been in the paranormal for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been hidden away. And it's like, I don't know, it's like Pandora's box. I kind of come out every now and again. And then I go back into my little box and then I think of something else and then I come back out again. And it's a weird analogy that I have, but I think this is my best work to date.
Brilliant.
And I'm excited. I'm really excited about it.
Well, make sure you keep us updated over at Haunted Histories, what you're up to.
Definitely. I definitely will.
Awesome. Well, that's been an hour, mate. So that's...
I can't believe we've been speaking for 3. I don't know what's going to happen. As soon as this is finished, we're going to be chatting again.
Yeah, I'm starting to, I must admit, no offence, I'm starting to sort of nod off now. I must admit, full well that my eldest will be up at about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. But
oh my goodness.
I know, you've been there, you know how I feel. So people have got to go and check out the Festival of the Unexplained. In one sentence, sell it again.
The Festival of the Unexplained is a festival of a weekend, which is just a whole shindig for people who are interested in spirits, UFOs, cryptids, you name it, it's going to be there. So head over to the website or look on Facebook at the Festival of the Unexplained.
Brilliant. Well, I'm sure you'll all agree we should be thanking Jolene for joining us on this episode of Haunted Histories on Paranormal UK Radio. Don't forget to check out the station. It's not just history or hauntings that they talk about over there. There's loads of actual amazing shows covering. I can't even give you the subjects, but there's aliens, there's hauntings, there's cryptozoology. I can't even think of it. It's got so many different shows on it. It's amazing. But go and check out Paranormal UK Radio. Do keep listening to Haunted Histories. Do check out the Facebook page, check out the YouTube channel, because there's new videos going up on there at the moment because, stuck in lockdown, I've got to find something to keep me amused. And join me on my next show in 2 weeks. I'm not going to tell you who the guest is going to be. You're going to have to wait and see. But it'll be a corker. It'll be a corker. So on that note, thank you ever so much for listening. Have a good evening. Sleep tight. And don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.